morning, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening, whichever time suits to you. Thank you very much for joining this forum. Myself, Subhash Chandra from Singapore. Welcome all the listeners. Thank you for joining us. Hope everyone is safe and healthy. I'm sure all of us are trying to take care of our health, especially the physical health, because nowadays we are not going outside our home to most of the extent. We are trying to remain at home, and this is going to impact our health, definitely. Are we doing something? Are we exercising? Are we doing some yoga? Are we doing something else? If not, please do it. When I started staying at home, it impacted me very differently. I am a regular office going person. And once I was instructed from the office that, no, you cannot come to office, stay at home. Initially, 1 day, 2 days, I was enjoying, but after that, my physique was not allowing me to stay at home. I was having different types of complications started. I thought, what happened to me? Then I realized, then I analyzed myself, then I analyzed my whole body system to understand what is happening. And then I found that I am not disciplined. Yes, I was not disciplined. Then I had to change myself based on the situation. Even if I was staying at home, I had to be disciplined enough to keep the right pace. Ladies and gentlemen, dear listeners, today we have brought one topic on discipline. In our life, many a times we think, oh, discipline is not that important. Many a time we think discipline is not for me. Or on the other side, many of us think that I am very disciplined and I don't need to do anything specifically separately. Different people have different types of thinking and different outcome counts. But in this particular situation, I think everyone is at the same point, is at the same pace. We are at home. Some are enjoying it with Netflix, probably, or other TV channels, or some other activities. Some are still busy with their office work. But if you are nagged by restless feeling that there must be more to life than your current day-to-day existence, I think the spiritual discipline is for you. You must think about how to discipline myself, not just from outside, but from inside as well. Today, we have a good speaker, Mr. Abhinav from Australia, Sydney. We are going to have chit-chat with him on this forum. Right now, we are going to share one of his speech in Sydney to some of the people few weeks before, and that discussion was on discipline. Mr. Abhinav is a young dynamic person who has started his job a couple of years back, and he has been practicing meditation, especially Vihangam meditation, since last 10 to 12 years. The young thought, the young experience and discipline probably seems to be contradicting, is it? Let's see, and let's hear Mr. Abhinav, what he has to say. Personally, I believe that youngsters considered to be less disciplined, but I don't think so. If you observe youngsters, if you observe people who are doing good in their life, who are being successful in their life, we find that they are relatively more disciplined. On the other side, there may be some people who are still successful, but they may not be that disciplined. But believe me, from my own experience, I have found that if I'm not disciplined, still skillful, talented for one particular part, one particular section, that talent, that skill will reduce, will diminish if I'm not disciplined, at least for that talent and skill. So right now, we're going to hear from Mr. Abhinav from Sydney on the topic discipline. Right now, we are sharing a recorded version which he delivered in Sydney a couple of weeks back to a large audience. Once we finish that discussion, then we start live question and answer with him. If anyone has any question, please do write to us on WhatsApp number or on the slido.com. Now let us hear from Mr. Abhinav about discipline.
Namaste everyone and Jai Sudev. It is lovely to see you all again this week online. The wonders of technology, one of the few things my industry has done right, which is good. As we talked about at the start, this is an opportunity for us to all stay connected, stay motivated, stay inspired as we all progress on our respective spiritual journeys. As we kind of discussed last week, this is an opportunity for all of us to continue our transformation or to, sit back and relax, watch a bit of YouTube and Netflix, So the decision is ours. We can be the guides of our own destiny in a sense. Hopefully when we all join together here, we're all given a chance to reflect on that, on what we want to do with our time, on what we want to do with ourselves. I feel humbled that I get to share this opportunity with all of you. So I hope you all get something out of this week. So firstly, thank you to all of you who shared the things you want to hear about in these sessions. We shared a Google form around on the WhatsApp group, and we received a few responses. This week, we're going to talk about discipline, which is, a super interesting topic. But just a quick reminder that if you have things you want to hear about, please keep adding them to that Google form. We'll be looking at those responses through the week, and obviously before the session, and determining what we're going to talk about. We can always choose what to talk about. The spirituality is an ocean, but obviously the most benefit of a satsang is for you all to get involved and share what you want to hear about. So we're really thankful to all of you who shared your responses. So just please do keep putting them in so that we know what you want to hear about. So discipline is a very interesting topic. Discipline is arguably a line which joins effort with achievement. If you have discipline and you have disciplined effort, you can achieve many incredible things in life. Discipline is also a very key part of the spiritual journey. The masters of spirituality have all lived very disciplined lives. Many of the human beings we respect, whether it be scientists or inventors or whatever it is, they all live very disciplined lives. If not all parts of their lives, there was a certain part of their life which was very disciplined. And today I'll be sharing some of those people and some of their journeys in very short, just to remind us all what we're capable of with a bit of discipline. So the first question is, when we talk about discipline, what are we disciplining? Where are we trying to achieve discipline? What is the source of a lack of discipline? The spiritual masters and the spiritual philosophy tells us very clearly what the source of a lack of discipline is. And it also tells us how discipline can be achieved. One thing to remind you all, even myself, before we dive into this, is that spirituality is not a matter of going to the jungle and meditating for so long that you have a beard. Spirituality is the ability to sit and to understand the science of how to live this life. Discipline is one of those sciences. Discipline is, as we start to dig into it, you should hopefully start to see how there is a science which entails this concept, just like all concepts of spirituality. So firstly, in order to understand discipline, we have to understand what tools do we have available to us. What are the things that lead to a lack of discipline, and what are the things that allow for discipline to happen? So, if you just sit for a moment, just still where you are right now, and you try to stop thinking, and generally try it, and you just try to stop thinking and see how long you can do that for. And eventually, you'll find that it becomes difficult. You start to think about random things. You start to think about thinking maybe, and you start to think you've won, but that in itself is a thought, by the way. So we start to realize that there is something where we don't have a sense of control in our life, something which we don't have control over, to be more precise. So you're sitting here and you're noticing that there is something that is, happening inside, and you want to understand what that is. And firstly, we should identify what that is, because arguably that is the biggest enemy of achieving a sense of discipline. So you're sitting here, you realize there's two forces inside you, one which is saying what you want to do, and one which is causing issues or deterring you from doing that thing. So I might tell you right now, focus on the image of an elephant. Now you're thinking about an elephant, but now 2 seconds later, 10 seconds later, you might be thinking about something else. Now, if you put yourself in a different situation, in a different place, let's say you're studying, let's say you're at work, let's say you're cooking, let's say you're doing whatever it is, this battle is always going on. This battle of what you want to do and what is actually happening. There is this other force which is causing you issues. Now, if we look at physics and the basic principles of physics, when there are two forces which are in contact with each other and they, kind of come against each other, we describe that as a process of friction in some cases. In some cases, we refer to it as resistance. There's many different names given to this phenomenon. But what we notice is a lot of energy is spent in that process of these two things colliding together. Now, if you think about it this way, there is both an issue and an opportunity. The issue is you have two things that are conflicting with each other inside of you. You have one force which is going this way and one which is going this way. One which is you, what you want to do, and one which is what's actually happening, the thing that is bothering you. Now, if you think about it this way, that is obviously a huge problem, but what if they both went in the same direction? What if you could, with your own capacity, with your own practice, with your own discipline, what if you could make the direction of both things the same and you could start to live your life in a more controlled and disciplined way? So what's going to happen in that case? What's going to happen is if this force is 30 and this force is 30, suddenly, rather than having 30 minus 30, 0, you have 30 plus 30, 60 in the direction you want to go in. So there is both an opportunity and there is an issue. There is the power of yourself, your intellect, which we call buddhi, and there is the power of the thing which is bothering you, the mind, the man. If you can align both of them and they both go in the same direction, now you have the power of the mind plus the power of your intellect, all directed in one place. So if you're studying, both your mind and your intellect will work together to allow you to understand what you're studying better. If you are listening to this session, your mind and intellect will work together and they will figure out exactly where I am not making sense or where I am wrong. If your mind and intellect are together, perhaps, when you're trying to do something creative, you can use the power of the mind, which is so unbounded and so, fluid, to go into worlds which you never thought existed before. And this is where discipline becomes an important thing. What we are achieving with discipline is a heightened sense of control over our mind. Now, the mind in spiritual philosophy, in the philosophy of Vihangam Yoga as well, is seen as the enemy or the deterrent or the barrier to us achieving a heightened sense of discipline. It can be very make you very sad when you decide, okay, from now on, every day I'm going to do this thing. And 2 days in, you're not able to do that thing. So you feel very sad. You feel very, like you don't have any power in your life. And that is, a very big issue. The reason is all of the parameters in that equation, all of the parameters in your life, which are leading you to be disciplined or not disciplined, are within your control. No one is forcing you to be distracted. No one is forcing you to to do things in a certain way. That is your own decision, your own choice, your own state of mind and consciousness. So the question is, what can you do in order to have more control over yourself and over your mind? Now, there's two, if you are a student of the yogic philosophy, Maharishi Patanjali gave us a very clear kind of structure to how we can think about this journey from a sense of no control to a sense of complete control and union. And in the end, the last three parts of that journey are dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Now, when we sit and we meditate, what are we doing is the question. Are we doing dhyan or are we doing something else? See, the answer to this question is very interesting. The answer to this question is we are not doing dhyan, we are doing dharana. Dharana is the practice of focusing and putting your concentration in one place. Dhyan is when you're so good at doing dharana, at focusing, that you even forget you are doing dharana. So dhyan is a state where you are meditating, but you forget you're meditating. You just become that state. Such as right now, you're awake, but you are not aware. You do not, you're not aware of the fact that you're awake. You just are awake, right? You're not thinking about it. You're not trying to be awake. You just are awake. So dhyan and being in a state of dhyan is the same. This is why in a lot of the yogic verses, being in a state of dhyan is often related to, or there is an analogy made to being in a state of sleep. Because once you're asleep, unless you're lucid dreaming or doing something interesting, you're not aware that you're asleep. You're just in that dream world. In the same way, when you're doing dhyan, you become so involved in doing dhyan that you forget that you're doing dhyan. So when we do dharana and when we do dhyan, what are we doing? The mind, which is right now causing us to think about so many different things. Maybe you're still thinking about that elephant I talked about a few minutes ago. The mind, which is taking us in so many different places, becomes still. Now, it is a very strange experience when your mind becomes still. Why is that? Because for your entire life, your mind has been the most opposite of still. It has been moving around everywhere. And when it becomes still, suddenly you have all this capacity and you have to decide, what are you going to do now, right? And for some people, they don't like that feeling. It's very uncomfortable. It's very weird. So they say, okay, I'm just going to meditate, but I'm still going to go watch Netflix and YouTube, which is fine. There's got to be a balance in life. But at the same time, that same person, when they decide, okay, I want to study this thing, when they sit to study, they become so involved in that activity, they forget about everything else. They are just doing that thing. So this is a state of focus. Now, the question is, how do you take this and then build discipline into your life? So discipline, firstly, what is discipline? What is going on when we live a disciplined life? Discipline is a smaller part of what is called conscious living. Conscious living is where you live a life where you are constantly aware and conscious of what you are doing, right? So conscious living is you are not reacting. You are guiding your life. You are not being driven around. You are driving your life. So an example of this is if you say to yourself, every day I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. Now that means you have to sleep at 10, let's say. Now, in order to do that, in order to sleep at 10, immediately, depending on your point in life, what you do day to day, you start to work backwards. Okay, I need to finish my work by 9:30. I need to meditate by 9:45. I need to be in bed by 10. You then work even more backwards. And slowly, all of the choices which you need to make in order to achieve that discipline become clear to you. Now, where does it become difficult? When you've decided, okay, I'm just going to take a 10-minute break from 9:30 to 9:40, and then I'm going to meditate. But suddenly that break goes from 9:30 to 10:30. You get hooked on a show that you like, and then suddenly you're not able to achieve that discipline which you're seeking. So the question is, what is happening when that happens? What is happening is your mind is taking control of your life, not you. Now, the tricky thing here is when we say you, and we say there's two forces inside you at all times, which are battling each other. One is the intellect. The intellect, the buddhi, and if you achieve the highest state of buddhi, you become what is known as the Buddh. You become the ultimate form of intellect. The buddhi is what we use to determine what is right or what is wrong. So you may have set a decision for yourself. Okay, by 9:30, I want to stop doing everything so I can sleep by 10. So that is what your definition is of what is a right kind of way to end your day. That is what your buddhi is going to define and determine. Now, if you become so involved in Netflix or YouTube at 9:15 that when 9:30 arrives, you don't even realize it, then suddenly, no matter what your intellect has decided, what you've decided for yourself, it no longer matters. You haven't actually achieved that thing. So this can be a very disempowering feeling. You can feel very, angry at yourself. You can feel very like you can't achieve anything. But on the flip side, if you can do that, if you can stop everything at 9:30, as you've decided, then it is a very powerful state of existence. Because suddenly, any decision you take, anything you do becomes truthful in nature. So how can we achieve that state? Well, the easiest way is to control the mind. The source of a lack of discipline is a lack of control on the mind. So in the same way, the source of a high sense of discipline is a high sense of control on the mind. Now, the other thing to understand here is, sometimes when we want to meditate, when we, try to decide, okay, I'm going to meditate twice a day and we're not able to do it, that in itself causes us to, lose this sense of discipline. Now, if I told you today that, okay, the days, you don't have to brush your teeth every day, let's just say, will you ever do that? I would hope you don't, because we all understand why we brush our teeth. We brush our teeth because it is good for our own dental health, and it is also good for the people around us. We live in a world where there's people around us. We don't want to shove our dirty breath in their direction. So we're never going to give up brushing our teeth. Now, the question is, why do we give up meditation? The reason for that is usually because we don't understand why it is important. Why is meditation important? Meditation is probably the biggest understatement and, watering down of the concept in history. Meditation is like brushing your teeth or cleaning up your insides. So day to day, you are living your life thinking about millions of things. You're taking in all this information. You're looking at things maybe which you think you shouldn't be looking at sometimes. Sometimes maybe you're looking at things that you want to look at, but you're looking at them for too long. Maybe you're watching that show for too long. And there's all this information coming your way. Scientists in California a few years ago defined as just how much information we take in every day in our brains. using the visual information, the information taken from our ears, all our senses, and it amounted to 32 gigabytes per day. Now, that's a lot of information, and we're not even conscious that we're taking in that much information, such as the wonder of the human body. But you can think about it this way. If you can at least sit down for 10 minutes twice a day, you have an opportunity, you're giving yourself an opportunity to clean up any of the mess inside of you. You're giving yourself an opportunity to filter through this information and get rid of things and, to reflect on things, whatever it is. So meditation is a way to clean up your insides. It's laundry for your mind. Now, if you don't do your laundry in real life, things become very dirty. When people come over, they start to look at you like, what is happening? In the same way, if you don't meditate, what often happens is you reach a point, or some situations in life, you reach a point where you're no longer able to control yourself. You have so many things inside of you, so much mess or so much dirt, that you start to react to things. You start to become angry. You start to become sad. You start to become irrational. And all of these things don't just affect you. They affect the people around you as well, in the same way as not brushing your teeth will affect everyone around you. Rather than making them smell something bad, you're going to make them feel bad internally because of your actions. So, the reason why we meditate is not only to achieve a sense of discipline within ourselves, we also meditate so that we can be better people to those around us. And that can be done in many different ways. One is being conscious of the effect of our actions. The other is just taking some time to clean up inside yourself so that when another person comes to you and has a problem or has something they want to share with you, you have the capacity, you have the emptiness inside you to take in their worries, to take in the negative energy they have and help them on their path forward. So, meditation is not done just for you. It is done also for the world. Now, we're thinking about all these things and we're trying to come back to discipline. How do we achieve discipline? First thing is we convince ourselves or we reason to ourselves why meditation is important. If we can understand for ourselves why meditation is important and we can sit and meditate with the right intent, then naturally a sense of discipline starts to develop because we become more focused in nature. We become more capable of controlling our mind. And then, when you take decisions, when you take choices for yourself, you're able to actually live by those choices. In some philosophies of spirituality, this is also known as being a karma yogi, a person who, once they say something, that thing becomes a truth in all manner. So if I say today, and if I, for some reason, or let's say someone is a karma yogi, and that karma yogi says, I am going to write a book by the end of this week. Now, if they're a karma yogi, if they have control over their mind, if they have control over their senses, then by the end of the week, you will see they have written a book. There are no excuses. They've sat down and they've done it. But for, people who are on the path to becoming that, perhaps you'll have written half the book. Perhaps you wouldn't have even started yet. There's procrastination, there's all these different things. So when it becomes a question of how do we achieve discipline, the first thing is understanding why something is important. So when we say discipline in meditation, we have to understand why meditation is important. Second, we need to commit ourselves to that path. And how do we do that? We simply sit by ourselves and we tell ourselves, okay, this is why meditation is important. This is why I'm going to do it. If you're meditating because I am telling you to meditate, then, in a way, you're never going to be motivated. You're only going to be doing it because someone else told you to. But if you are meditating because you understand what it is going to do for you and what it's going to do for the people around you, then your intent and the effect of that practice will be very different. Now, I also want to reflect very, very briefly on the power of discipline, on the power of focus. Some of us have this thought that, I am of this particular age group, or I am this young, or I'm this old. Can I really achieve these things? Can I really become disciplined? And if I do, what can I do with that? Now, I just wanted to go through a list of some of the things that some people in history have achieved. Mozart, the most famous pianist, piano player in the world, in history, became proficient in piano, in keyboard, at the age of 5. Tenzin Gyatso, the current Dalai Lama, was named the Dalai Lama at the age of 15. Isaac Newton wrote the first book on calculus at the age of 24. Albert Einstein, a scientist you may have heard of, wrote the theory of relativity at the age of 26. Martin Luther King, at the age of 34, wrote the famous speech known as I Have a Dream. Marie Curie, at the age of 35, became one of the first women to be lauded or to be awarded or considered for the Nobel Prize in Physics at the age of 35. Suzanne Collins, at the age of 46, achieved an incredible thing, which is slipping my mind right now. Leonardo Da Vinci, at the age of 51, painted the Mona Lisa, which we all admire, even to this day. And Nelson Mandela, at the age of 76, became the president of South Africa. Now, in this small list, you can see there are individuals of every age group. There is no one, it is not that any of these people are less than 20 or all of these people are greater than 60. These are people who are all of different age groups and have achieved different things in different fields. They are masters of their fields. What does this tell us about the human potential? It tells us that age is a number, firstly, and we should throw that number away. What it tells us is that we are capable of anything which we seek to achieve as long as we are willing to live a disciplined life. Another person who I didn't talk about, at the age of 36, Sadhguru Slavdeji Maharaj founded the organization of Vihangam Yoga. So there's all these individuals from different walks of life which are telling us one clear message, that if you can achieve this superpower of having a greater sense of control over your mind, then you can achieve incredible things in your life. Not at the age of 5, but at any age and at any point in time and space. These people are not people from one part of the world. I haven't even talked about some of the people from our own history, such as Rishi Valmiki. Valmiki, if you've heard his story, was a daku, was a robber, was a thief. And then later he became known as a Maharshi, just on the basis of his discipline, his spiritual discipline. So, if you're a person who is, unsure or, let's say a little sad about where you are right now, the message is very loud and clear if you look through human history itself, or if you look at the message of spirituality itself, that you are capable of whatever you're looking to achieve, or even the things you haven't even thought about yet, as long as you can tame this thing known as the mind. And this is one of the troubling things with our with the world we live in today. If we look at the tools we have available to us, we have the mind, we have the intellect, we have the sensory organs, and there's a famous quote from Sant Namdev Ji, who is the head of international seva and prachar in Vihangam Yoga, which is, if we had one sensory organ, that would be enough to bother us for the rest of our life. But we have 5 of them. We have 5 of these things which can bother us at all times. And This is why it is difficult to live in the world we live in today. We live in a very sensory world, a world where we are one screen away from being, tantalized, from being attracted, using our hearing, using our vision. We are, constantly bombarded by all these different things. And then we try to seek discipline in this life. It is a very difficult thing to achieve, but it is not impossible. And this is where the message of Vihangam Yoga really starts. Vihangam Yoga starts with the control of mind. Why does it start with that? Because that is the source of all lack of discipline and the source of all disturbance in our life. If we want to learn what discipline is, we have to understand the value of the things which take us toward a higher state of discipline. The most powerful one of those tools and practices is meditation. And just to remind you once more, meditation, and when we sit to meditate, it is only known as dharma. Dhyana is a property, is a state which is only achievable to us when a master guides us toward it. We cannot on our own achieve a state of dhyana. This is why the status and the inclusion and the role of a master is so important. And the question is, why can we not achieve a state of dhyana on our own? Even those who have gone to the jungle thousands of years ago and achieved a state of dhyana, if you were to speak to them, they would say they have a master. That is because this entire philosophy of spirituality, it revolves around a very uncomfortable journey. That journey is, when we look at science and the study of science, if I were to try and understand this microphone in front of me, I could get a microscope, I could, break this microphone apart, and I could try to understand how it works. But I can't do that with myself. I can't break myself apart and look inside. I can't look at my mind. But if you start to meditate, if you start to become more still, these things become more known to you. But even then, you're trying to look back at yourself. You're trying to be both the subject and the object. In science, the object the subject of observation is usually outside of you. You're observing a subject such as the microphone. But in meditation and spirituality, the subject is you, and you are also the observer. It is a very uncomfortable thing to try and master. So that is where another energy source has to be present in order to guide you on that journey. Because it is very easy to lose sense of self, to lose sight of where you are going if you try to do this just on your own. So, this is all I have to say today. To the person who thankfully shared this topic with us, I hope I gave you something to think about. In short, discipline is, in one sense, discipline is where you live a life which is conscious, which is, where you apply a sense of self-control to every part of your life and you align it with the kind of life you want to live, not the kind of life which your mind is going to make you live, the kind of life you want to live. So that's discipline in as well as I can explain it. And please do remember all those people who I mentioned, including Sadhgurudev, because it's just proof that we can all achieve whatever we want to achieve.
This was Mr. Abhinav speaking about discipline. And now we have an opportunity to have an interaction, live interaction with him. Welcome, Abhinavji, on the forum. Thank you very much for this wonderful speech, which I think everyone would have enjoyed it. I hope you are able to hear my voice.
Yes, I am. Thank you for the warm welcome, Subhashi.
Thank you very much. Depending on our time, I'll try to put up some of the questions and some of my own inquisitiveness to have interaction with you, to have some chit chat. And at the end, we would just summarize what exactly we heard and learned during this session. I think I noticed there are a couple of, not just couple of, many interesting facts which you had mentioned. One important thing I first want to bring and to understand in a much more better way. You mentioned that there are many different types of ways to discipline ourselves. And of course, age is not a matter to not to be disciplined. And out of all different tools and techniques, one who is practicing, meditation is the most efficient one. Here, what I want to understand from you is that, is it the point that meditation can be practiced by everyone? And then it may be possible that there are some people who think that, no, I'm already disciplined. Why do I need a meditation? Is it true that even if a person is disciplined at one particular time, he is still can enhance his life to be more conscious through meditation?
Yeah, lovely question. And thank you again for having me. What I'd say is, when I reflected on this with some of the lovely folks in Sydney a few weeks ago, where we really reached in our shared understanding is, there's this word in Vihangam Yoga, in Brahma Vidya, in this philosophy of spirituality, which is Vigyan. And the closest word you can connect this to in the English language is science. Now, regardless of what you think your level of discipline is, or regardless of how, you personally define discipline, there is a Vijnanic definition of discipline, a scientific definition of discipline, which is, formulated on the basis of the principles of spirituality. And, the most essential, from my, very basic understanding, one of the most essential things in the spiritual journey is understanding this concept of energy and conscious energy, which, if you're interested, you could understand further with the Hindi word, which is surati. Now, the mind and, the way the mind works is that it draws conscious energy from the engine of this body we've been given, and it, scatters that energy around the world through the sensory organs or the indriyas. Now, if you want to be disciplined, or if you want to say that you have achieved a sense of discipline, the most absolute way to achieve that is to be able to say, there is not a single shard of my conscious energy which is being scattered in a direction I do not want it to be scattered. So, one of the key things with spirituality and spiritual philosophy is that, here we definitely talk about, self-mastery and self-understanding, but there is a science at the bedrock of all of this. And that is, for lack of a better term, that there is a science at the bedrock. And that science is telling us that, you have to be so subtle and so well controlled that you understand your own energy profile, and you understand just how much of our energy is going in the wrong direction and how much of our energy is going in the direction you want it to go in. And once you have a complete sense of control at this layer, at this level of subtle understanding, then you can very confidently say, yeah, I'm a disciplined person. I'm a karma yogi. Every action I take, there is a certain amount of energy that I put into that action, and there is no leftover energy which is being, placed into anything else. So, there's, other words start to emerge at this point, such as sankalp, which is, taking a formidable resolve. And all of these things start to tie together into the life of a yogi from my very basic understanding. So what I would say to answer your question, Subhashi, is meditation is a way for you to test and to really understand just how disciplined you are, even if you are disciplined. Are you disciplined to the point where 90% of your energy is going where it wants to be? Or are you a master of discipline where all of your energy is going where you want it to go? So that's what I would say to this question.
Yeah, very rightly said, Abhinavji. If I have to understand in a much more better way, in our day-to-day life, many times people around us, sometimes we hear that be disciplined, try to follow the discipline. This word sometimes works differently for a person, say a student who is going to school on a regular basis. This sentence can work differently for a person who is going to office. This sentence can work differently for a person who is retired. So when we talk about be disciplined, does this mean that it is related with our habit? It is related with our time management. It is related with our day-to-day activities which we are doing, and it is linked with a inner discipline as well. I think when we talk about spiritual discipline, it is more moving inside the inward journey and how disciplined and how active, how conscious we are inside. But if somebody says, suppose to a student, that be disciplined, does this mean that we are talking about being more active? The habit should be conscious enough and all those kind of things.
Yeah, a fantastic thing to talk about for sure. As you beautifully mentioned, like discipline and achieving discipline is, the way you achieve discipline might look different depending on your own status in life. If you're a student, if you're a teacher, as you mentioned. But I think if we keep it very essential and we look at what the spiritual philosophy says, this world we live in is boundless, is infinite, right? We look outside. If you just look, in one direction straight outside your window, you're going to see, the window, you're going to see the trees, you're going to see an array of colors, of lights, of homes. And there's, there's an infinity inside of each of those homes because there's people inside. They have their own way of thinking. They have the other million things they're thinking about. So, when we read the spiritual philosophy, we understand that where we are, this prakriti, this natural material world, is infinite. You can't encapsulate it, right? And discipline is our way of drawing a line, through this infinity. We're saying, okay, this is the prakriti, this is where I exist, but now I want to draw a line. And according to that line, I want to live my life in a certain way. And, if you're a student, it might be that your way of doing that is that you're drawing a line which aligns with your goals, obviously, which is, maybe, in order to become more proficient in mathematics, you need to practice mathematics for an hour every morning. If you're a teacher, to become a better, a more powerful guide for your students, perhaps you need to spend that hour, understanding or sitting with your students every day and understanding what they're thinking about. So, depending on where you are in life, you may go through a slightly different exercise, but at the most essential level, what you're trying to do is to build a framework for your own self, which only you can, really measure. Are you being disciplined? Like, I cannot go to my brother's room right now and figure out, what is his discipline rating, if you could say, because he's the one taking the decisions about this is the way I want my life to be. Now, obviously, there's a question of, if you're a very disciplined procrastinator, then is that what you want to be? Maybe it's not. So there's another aspect here, which is, you have to define for yourself, what is it that you actually want to do with your time and with your life? If you have determined for yourself, okay, I want to get up early and I want to do certain things with my time, then once you define that should be the line you've drawn in this infinite world we live in. And if you don't hit that, then you're being undisciplined. If you do hit that, then you are being disciplined. So, again, depending on your quality of life and where you are and where you stand, it might be a little different. But I think the exercise should be very similar for everyone.
Absolutely. I think a few of the words which you have mentioned is very, very interesting and marvelous to understand. I'm just repeating those, drawing a line on this infinite path which we are leading right now. At the same time, designing your own framework, whichever state we are at, and defining ourselves. I think this frame structure, these lines will definitely change time to time as and when we progress on this path, as and when our intellect, our understanding, our maturity level increases. And the question comes basically how somebody will understand where the line has to be drawn. That again comes from experience, and many times master actually plays a major role. Depends which life age we are at, doesn't matter. And here the meditation comes again with a mark that gives us an opportunity as well as a capability to understand what is right, what is wrong, where to draw what. So moving forward, just one question I have, Abhinavji, on the basis of time. We have received one question on Slido. I'll just explain that. It says, can the term discipline be replaced by dharma? I think this word is dharma coming on the basis of when we are talking about the inner self, when we are talking about the inner discipline, when we're talking about the word yogi and karma yogi kind of thing. So do you think the discipline can be replaced by a term dharma?
Yeah, lovely question. And I think just as I'm reading the question, it also seems like they want to understand if it can be replaced with dharana as well, which is really interesting too. So I'll try to touch on both. Firstly, in terms of dharma, what I'd say is, discipline is one of the key parts of dharma, which is, a much deeper topic. If you go deep into the Vedic philosophy, into the way Vihangam Yoga unwinds it, there's 4 key principles and 10 pillars of dharma. Of course, this interaction of discipline, I would say, is fundamental in order to live a dharmic life. Because even if you understand what a dharmic life is, if still your energy is being dissipated into doing adharmic things, into living a life that is not aligned with dharma, then again you're back at square one. From my understanding, one of the reasons why we try to meditate on a regular basis is to have this heightened control of mind so that we can then actually live that dharmic life. So that would be my explanation of the relationship between dharma and discipline. In short, if I was to look at dharana, dharana is also very interesting. Dharana is defined as the ability to focus or concentrate. Now, the question is that all that discipline is? Now, I'd say it's not, because, I would say dharana is one of the tools that you need to develop in order to be disciplined. But there is another aspect, which is your control over mind, which is very important, which is dharana. But I also say there's an extra aspect, which might be, extending discipline a little bit, which is how you use your buddhi or your intellect, which we, also evolve into the definition or the word vivek, which is application of buddhi to understand if you are living in a righteous or, in the right or wrong way. Are you hitting those lines you have defined for yourself in this infinite world? So, if you are very good at dharana, then you'll be able to focus and concentrate. But the second question is, are you focusing and concentrating on the right thing? So, when we start to look at discipline in a spiritual way, in a spiritual context, obviously you need to be able to concentrate, but you also need to be able to ensure that you're evolving your understanding of what you should be concentrating on so that you better align with what the spiritual lifestyle should actually be. So I think that's how it reflects on those two things. And dharma, I would, again say, is a much larger, superset of virtues and values. And I wouldn't replace it. I wouldn't replace either of these terms of discipline. I'd say, discipline is one of the tools you need to develop to be dharmic, and dharma is one of the tools you need to develop to be disciplined.
Yeah, very rightly said, Abhinavji. I think Sant Prabhu Shri Vigyan Deji Maharaj from Vihangam Yoga mentions that if we as a soul are able to listen the voice of ourself, means once the soul is able to hear the voice of soul itself, that means we are on the path of dharma. And I'm 100% sure what you mentioned is right, that discipline is one of the tools to move on that path. So thank you very much, Abhinavji, for joining with us today. Now let me summarize what we had today with Abhinavji. We were talking today about one of the interesting topic called discipline, how disciplined we have to be, what a major role a discipline plays in our life is very important to understand. Couple of things which I have noted from Abhinavji's discussion. We have to draw our own line. And for different person, the line is different in this infinite frame. We have to define our own frame structure as well, what we want, how we want to lead our life. And for that reason, sometimes, to a many extent, we may need a master to guide us at different time of point. It's us who are responsible for our own life. The more conscious we are, the more disciplined we would be. The more aimful our life is, the more disciplined we would be. Meditation plays the most important role to be disciplined. In very short words, studying, self-studying, being more silent from inside to observe ourselves, simplicity, gratitude and service, and meditation are the major roles playing to keep us disciplined. One more interesting thing, which Abhinavji mentioned, what Sant Sri Namdevji Maharaj has been mentioning, we have 5 sense organs. To any person to be disturbed, just one sense organ is enough. We have 5 sense organs. Controlling 5 sense organs at a time is not that easy. Again, the medicine, the cure to control our sense organs is meditation. And Vihangam Yoga plays a major role to uplift every human being's life, to uplift it in the right direction through different stages of meditation. With this, I would like to thank once again Abhinavji and to all the listeners for joining us on this platform. Thank you very much. Have a nice time ahead. Stay safe and remain healthy. Next week, again, we'll come up with another interesting topic to discuss on this forum. Thank you very much. God bless all of us.